Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Betting with Bearman podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL draft is just hours away, and we're excited to have a couple of guests today. Austin Payne, former NFL player with the Jags and the Texans, current host of Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610, and Austin Swaim, currently works at PrizePicks with me, and he used to work for FanDuel Research. Big MMA guy. Glad to have them both on the show. Gentlemen, welcome to the Betting with Bearman podcast. I'm excited to have you guys here.
I'm excited to be here just because, look, I'm with the Texans. We have number 28 overall, and we all know that Nick Caserio is going to trade out of the first round. So I'm just happy to be included in anything at the top half of the first round.
No, it's great. It's great to have you in there to talk about that top first of the round because there's a lot of picks going on there. Austin, happy to have you here. You came up to me weeks ago and said you wanted to be part of this podcast. I'm happy to have you here.
I feel like a draft volcano. I put out my top 100 board yesterday. I said that my final board was 2 weeks ago. I always lie to myself. So I have my final one to yesterday on X. And then I've also had a lot of betting content on Pro Football Network or PrizePicks or a lot of different places. So I think I'm a volcano. So I'll try not to erupt in front of you guys with all of these different draft takes that I have.
It's always fascinating, the NFL draft, because everybody has an opinion. You got your mock. This guy has his mock. When I was at Pro Football Network, we had a mock every single day. And to be honest, nobody knows anything. The only people who know stuff are the general managers of the team, maybe the head coach, and occasionally it's the owner who makes the picks. You really don't know anything. Even my guy, Todd McShay, keeps going back and forth on the number 2 pick. So we're going to break it down as best as possible. We're going to look at it from a betting lens. There's mocks, and then there's betting on the draft, which has become one of the biggest betting events of the year, especially for something not on the field. So we're going to start right there. What are your overall thoughts? I'm going to start with you, Seth. I know your team is 28th, but we got a lot of good players up at the top 10. We know Mendoza is going to go 1 to the Raiders. We know that. We expect an official announcement any second, even though we've known it for months. After that, what do you expect for this draft early on?
I think, for me, I'm pretty much just the groupthink when it goes to Mendoza, then Reese to the Jets. And there's a part of me that wonders, okay, they canceled the meeting with David Bailey, but is that just to throw people off? The Jets aren't in a position where they need to be doing any of that. I think they probably really like Arvell Reese. Then I'm going to go David Bailey, Jeremiah Love, and then the Sonny's. You guys are better at this than me. Okay, supposedly, reportedly, the Giants are out on Sonny Styles, which I feel like there's no reason to leak that unless you're 100% in on Sonny Styles, unless they're playing 5-dimensional chess, and that's what they want me to think because that's what they think that people are going to think. I think it's still Sonny Styles to the Giants.
That's the amazing part about the draft is we always call this week smokescreen week. You don't really know if you're telling me something because you believe it or you're telling me something because you want me to believe it. Well, he said, she said, at the end of the day, we don't know. Austin, what do you expect to happen in this draft?
Yeah, I think the 2 biggest storylines in the NFL draft this year are there's really this elite talent group of about 7 or 8 players, if you want to throw in Penn State guard Vega Iwane. I knew I was going to mess his name up right out of the gate. But I actually think there will be a lot of movement at the top of the board as teams are more willing to give up draft capital from this year to secure one of those elite talents because the talent cliff falls off a shelf right after that first 7 to 8 picks. And then the other storyline of the first round, offensive linemen. I mean, it's heavily favored on sports books that at least 8 offensive linemen are going to go. I think it could be 9 if Emmanuel Pregnon or Keelan Rutledge, a guard, sneaks into the first round there as well. Offensive line is the order of the day. And again, it's a supply and demand equation because once those offensive tackles are gone, they're all like top 40 prospects or so. They're pretty much gone until developmental guys in late in the 3rd round. So I really think jockeying there is one of the things I'm going to be watching in the first round of who really tries to move up and secure one of those dudes.
And I think too, when you talk about how they've got these stud edge rushers at the top, but then when you get down into the second half of the first round, there's a boatload of edge rushers that people feel really good about that could go anywhere just based on scheme and personal preference. Guys that could be back half of the second round, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if they end up going late in the first round.
Right. I think edge and wide receiver cannibalizes itself in this year's draft where these guys are really good players, but the depth of the class kind of works against them going earlier.
Austin, you had mentioned the draft and how it may go. Do you see any team in the bottom of the draft actually trading up or even in the middle of the draft? We've already seen one trade. We saw the Bengals give up the 10 pick and give it to the Giants. It wasn't really a trade up or trade down situation. It was a trade out, and the Giants now have 2 top 10 picks. Do you see another team making it move? And it may not be a Chiefs moving up for Patrick Mahomes type thing or Packers moving into the bottom of the first round for Love. Is there a player and a team that you think is going to be married because of a trade up?
Yeah, I think there are dancing partners all throughout the draft. Dallas, of course, has 2 first-round picks, and Jerry Jones gets ants in his pants. Pittsburgh has 3 third-round picks, as well as Miami has a boatload of picks on day 1 and 2. Those guys may want to empty the war chest. You think about the Dolphins specifically, new coach, new general manager, try to set a tone with a pick early. What if you give up a few picks just to move from 11 to 3 or to 6 and secure one of those blue chip talents? I definitely think there are dancing partners that fit. One of the things I wrote to Pro Football Network this morning, 4 teams that could trade up or down. And I really think movement is going to be a story early.
Seth, what about you? Is there a team you think goes the other way? I know you had mentioned off the top, you think the Texans may jump out and give up their pick. Is there anybody else that you think may say, you know what, I'm out of the first round. I don't like this. Give me some picks.
I don't, that's where it gets really interesting with Ty Simpson when you get to the end of the first round, because there's just multiple teams that are, what happened with Houston last year was the Giants wanted Jackson Dart, and they're going to pay more for a quarterback to jump up into the first round. And I think there's multiple teams there that would be very interested in potentially jumping back. So if Ty Simpson slides all the way down there, I think it's probably a guarantee that somebody trades up into the first round, or there's a really good chance that somebody trades up in the first round to get them. And then the other team that just intrigues me is I played with Aaron Glenn. I love Aaron Glenn. He's one of my favorite all-time teammates. What I want for him is more picks, like as many picks as possible. So there's part of me that just, even though Reese seems to be chalk at number 2 overall, I feel like the best thing for the Jets at this point is to get as many good picks as possible. Just take as many swings at the plate in the first round as you can get.
And we're going to break down Ty Simpson in a little bit when we touch on the quarterback. So it's interesting that you brought that up. We're also going to talk about teams like the Jets and who they like early on. You're listening to the Betting with Bearman podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Guys, you talked about the 1 pick. Seth, you talked about the rest of the top 5. I wanted to throw it to you, Austin. Is there a bet in the top 5 that you love the most? Throwing numbers out there so everybody can follow along. Reese is the favorite to go 2 to the Jets at -260 at FanDuel Sportsbook, followed by Bailey at 180. And that's pretty much it, because then Styles is 60-1 and Love is 60-1. Bailey's +125 favorite to go 3, Love +225, Reese at +250. So you really don't know what's going on there.
Sure.
Jeremiah Love is the odds-on favorite at -135 to go 4 to Tennessee. And Styles is the favorite at +150 to go to the Giants, even though Seth says they might be out on them. These odds change a lot. Austin, is there one bet right there in the top 5 that you really like?
There is. I like Sonny Styles to go in the top 5. It's +110 is the best number that I could find on the board there. I was late to market on Sonny Styles. I was a little lower on him throughout the season before we got to the pre-draft process. And then I understood he's not an off-ball linebacker. He is the queen on the chessboard, and that these teams are looking for these guys like Nick Emanwari, like Kyle Hamilton, that can match tight ends, match any sort of coverage options in the slot. That is Sonny Styles, and we knew it when he exploded at the combine, 4.46 40, jumped 43.5 inches as a middle linebacker. The dude is a freak. He's like a bigger Kyle Hamilton. He's a bigger Nick Emanwari, and he's got the rush instincts as far as covering lanes, chasing down ball carriers of a middle linebacker. And a lot of people speak very highly of his character. I've never met him, but I assume he is a tremendous guy from all the reports. I think he is in play for the Jets at number 2. I know that's an insane thing, but they are a little bit unconventional. Aaron Glenn doesn't really give a lot at his press conferences, and I know Seth mentioned him. I think it could be all a smokescreen. We're thinking Bailey or Reese, and then all of a sudden Sonny Styles, this leader, this guy that is going to set the tone for that defense and be the guy that is the caretaker in the middle of the defense. I think his window opens at 2. Number 3 wouldn't be crazy. I think Robert Saleh would love to have him number 4 with the Titans. And then I do see his parachute at number 5 to the Giants. I'm not necessarily buying some of the rumors and smoke. So I'll take plus money on Sonny Styles to go in the top 5 because I think he's the second best player in the class behind Jeremiah Love. And I think some team's going to fall in love.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Seth, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and for me, look, I love Jeremiah Love. I think everybody in the NFL, like everybody loves Jeremiah Love,
Yes.
but everybody's scared of running backs and just exactly how much impact do they have. Look, NFL teams ran more last year than they had in over a decade. Defenses are not set up and sometimes just don't even know how to stop the run. And boy, I mean, I would say I feel really strongly that if he's there at number 4, the Titans are 100% going to take him because Brian Daboll's had success already with a young quarterback paired with a really good running back like Saquon Barkley. That was when Daniel Jones was at his best, was when Saquon Barkley was healthy. I think that the pendulum might have swung enough now that people look at Jeremiah Love and would be willing to even trade up to number 3 to take Jeremiah Love at number 3. I think there's enough guys out there that think, look, tell me what you want about injury risk or anything like that. If I've got a Christian McCaffrey type guy that can make me look like I'm a really smart offensive coordinator, a really smart head coach, he can do that for you. So it's just not a rich enough bet at 4. I like it at number 3 because I think it's achievable and very possible.
Trading up to get Jeremiah Love, that would be awesome. I think he's a phenomenal player as well. It would be interesting because if teams are so scared of first-round running backs, but if he's the best on the board, he's the best on the board.
You know, partly too is like I watched the Texans trade up aggressively for Will Anderson, and at the time it was people were very skeptical about it, but he's that special kind of a player, and they knew it. And part of it was, you know, the meetings that they had with him. They could just tell that everything about Will Anderson, the person and the player, was something special. And I think there's going to be at least a couple teams that are thinking that about Jeremiah Love.
I agree.
Seth, what about moving down the board? Is there a favorite bet you have in the top 15, someone to go off in the top 15 to a certain team that you think is something that you want to play?
I feel like Ioane, and I was lucky enough, Austin, I know it's hard to pronounce that name. And I don't know about, I think he says Ioane, but I played with Junior Ioane, so I've at least played with an Ioane.
Sure.
So I feel like he's the classic guy. Just like it was when the Texans traded back while Kyle Hamilton was still on the board. I was looking at Kyle Hamilton, and I'm like, that's a Ravens guy right there. The Ravens pick up Kyle Hamilton. Ioane feels like a Ravens type of player. And I think if Ioane makes it down that far, and, you know, like Austin referenced, man, these offensive linemen might be coming off the board real fast. But we don't know exactly how teams have him power ranked. He feels like a Baltimore Raven.
It is amazing that every draft, whenever the Ravens and the Steelers pick, you always say, yeah, that's a Steelers guy. That's a Ravens guy.
Yeah,
all the time, every time. Like, yeah, of course. What about you, Austin?
I hope this stays in the top 15. I can't see them leaving the top 15, but the Kansas City Chiefs, they're currently slotted at number 9. I actually think they could move up. Offensive line, plus 250 is what I'm looking at. I look at the biggest hole on the Chiefs roster. They're looking for an edge rusher. They're looking for a wide receiver. They could use a tackle. The problem is that tackles aren't going to be there by the time they pick at number 29 or number 40. So I think supply and demand, maybe you do love a Carnell Tate or that type of player at number 9, but we need to get our tackle right away. Francis Mauigoa from Miami and Spencer Fano from Utah, both right tackles that plug right into. They had to release Jawan Taylor for cap reasons. I have had this mocked in both of my mocks right after the combine, and then most recently a couple of weeks ago. Both times I went Mauigoa. I think they'd be very open to Fano as well. To me, it's crazy that it's plus 250. Some of that is smoke about receiver, but you can get a receiver later. You could get an edge rusher. Seth mentioned how deep edge goes even into the second round. I think the Chiefs are going to take an offensive lineman. They may even trade up to do it.
You know, it's funny. Every time I look at mock drafts or look at the draft order and I see Chiefs at 9, I just assume it's a mistake or someone traded up. Seeing the Chiefs at 9, just every time you say it, I'm like, well, how do they have the 9 pick? They always pick 31 or 32 every year.
I think it's a good idea for really good teams every now and then. Just take a hiatus, have your quarterback injured or something. Just get back up into the juicy part of the draft.
Right, worked for the Colts. It's worked for the San Antonio Spurs twice already. Yeah. So I mean, you have 5 or 6 really good years. You punt on 1 year, and then you get a great player. I mean, Pat
Mahomes ACL is their cold envelope. That's how they're rigging it this year.
And lo and behold, maybe they trade up and get his left tackle to protect him for the next 10 years. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that one down year helped him out. You guys ready for a lightning round?
I love it.
I know Austin is. I'm not ready, but I'm going to do it.
I didn't tell them the players ahead of time. I wanted to throw this one in there as a fun little game. We have a couple of structured segments. but this is going to be the over-under lightning round on the Betting with Bearman podcast. I'm just going to throw names out there. I'm going to call a guy out. I'm going to call Seth or Austin out, and then they have to tell me over, under, or why. That's as simple as it gets. So over-under lightning round, we'll go Austin first. Caleb Downs, 9.5. Under is favored at -140 at FanDuel Sportsbook, at least as of 10 minutes ago.
I'm going to go under because if I think Sonny Styles goes top 5, I think Dallas could trade up to 6 for Downs. The Commanders would be a good fit with a safety need at 7. I'm going to go under for Downs.
And those who are confused, 9.5 under means top 9 picks. So over under numbers with the way they're going, it can confuse people.
I get dyslexia with this too. Is like the over is all right. The actual number, not the position in the draft. Yeah.
It's the same thing when you're watching golf and everything's backwards. So
yeah.
Seth, your turn. Going right back to you. Jeremiah Love, 5.5. Under is extremely juiced at -340.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go with the under, of course. Yeah, which means he goes higher than that. Yes.
Who's getting He's going higher, which means under. It makes total sense.
Yes. No, and I think that I kind of throw all the conventional wisdom about running backs in the draft out when they are unconventional or exceptionally talented prospects. Yes. And I feel that way about him. And I do think it's tough when you start to try to judge what the current prevailing thinking is in the NFL. You always got to remember that, man, there's some guys that just think differently about the league. And if you go to there are still many coaches out there who very much believe in the phrase establish the run. But when you can establish the run, but also have a receiving threat, also just be able to run multiple different types of plays and schemes, I think he's that guy. And every offensive-minded coach out there is going to dream and envision of how brilliant they are and what all the incredible things they can do because they're so brilliant. They're going to fall in love with them.
Yep.
The College Football Playoff Committee did us a injustice by not allowing us to see 3 or 4 more games of Jeremiah Love on the national stage. So
I agree. Hey, Ashton Genty went number 6. Jeremiah Love's a better prospect. I agree with Seth from that perspective.
Someone who did make the college football playoff because Jeremiah Love didn't, and this is somebody that I silently hope goes to the over. Reuben Bain Jr., 8.5, heavily juiced to the over at -320. Very intriguing because this guy was a top 5 guy a month ago.
Yes.
His over-under is now at 8.5. Austin, where's Reuben Bain Jr. go?
I wish I got a different number because I definitely think it's over from there. And it has nothing to do with the off-field story that came up. Teams have known about that for months. It's really about the arm length. I think teams are concerned about the arm length because you haven't seen a 10-sack guy in the NFL with sub-32-inch arms like that in years. And Cassius Howell from Texas A&M measured even smaller. And I look at Bain's tape and how disruptive he is and how good he is at getting off blocks laterally. He's just so smart, so technically refined, and he's got these big, strong mitts. I think he's still going to be a very good player, but there will be concerns where I think he falls kind of a little bit behind that top 7 or 8 that I was talking about. And then you see the window gets open, Miami at 11, Dallas if they stay at 12, Baltimore at 14. It won't be long before Bain goes, but I'm going to go over 8.5.
This is I'm going to jump in on this one. I'm sorry, man, because just what we were talking about Jeremiah Love. This is one I could see scouts and coaches getting into fist fights over, because I think there's going to be a lot of coaches that think like, I don't care about his measurables. I watch him play football. Do you see how low he gets? Like he plays. When it's appropriate, he plays like he's 3 feet tall. Like, I don't care about his arm size. His leverage is so incredible, but it is very real that he's going to have to be sure that he can overcome that. I would, as a coach, if I were a coach that could override the GM and I let my emotions get the better of them, which those guys exist. We saw Bill O'Brien for a long time. That I wouldn't put it past the team really making him the first guy off the board. I don't see the team that's going to do that necessarily. And that's if the Ravens were up there higher, I might say it would be the Ravens. At short arms was Terrell Suggs. Yeah. I would end up taking the over on that one too.
The under is at +275, so there is some value there if you think he's going to be a top 8 pick. And guys, I was on vacation at home and I was watching Miami, Ohio State, I think it was the quarterfinal game with my dad, who's a huge Hurricane fan. And just watching Reuben Bain and Caleb Downs and all those guys, it was like watching the Kings and Seminoles in the 80s and 90s with all these guys. It was just all over the field, NFL players.
I've got this picture in my mind of NFL scouts looking at Mike Tyson and saying, yeah, I could take him. He's got short arms. Nah, screw him. How's he gonna get past these?
He's just that good. And I wrote his scouting profile for PrizePicks. It was the same thing. I looked at it, I watched. I'm like, how would people? Yes, I get the measurables of the measurables. But you know what? Drew Brees didn't have good measurables either, and he's a Hall of Famer. So,
yep.
Speaking of quarterbacks, so save this one for last. You guys know where I'm going with this one because it's a perfect segue into our next segment. Ty Simpson. The number is 24.5, juice to the over, minus 270. The under is plus 195. We're going to start with you, Seth. Where does Ty Simpson go in this draft?
Oh, I think he goes over, and it's late. It's late in that round. It's going to be either somebody that there might be somebody that jockeys back and isn't all in on Ty Simpson, but then eventually decides, okay, this is our guy. I wish I knew what Aaron Rodgers was going to do this year. I'm sure the Steelers wish they knew what Aaron Rodgers was going to do this year. But I would just say that part, it's since 2000, in the last 20 years, there have been 7 trades up to the 25th pick or later, and they've all been for quarterbacks. And this is just that prime spot where people don't think he's worth a first-round pick, but we're right there at the second round anyway, so let's just go ahead and lock him in for 5 years in case he works out.
Yep. It has been 15 years since only one quarterback went in the first round, so the odds are that 2 quarterbacks are going to go, so you're having him go between 25 and 32. What about you, Austin?
I actually think I'm going to go under. I'm going to buy a little bit of the smoke. It doesn't necessarily have to do what I think about Ty Simpson as a prospect, but I think someone is going to be in. Arizona could potentially be a suitor. The Jets at 16 is an interesting spot. And I'm going to tell you right now, keep an eye on the Los Angeles Rams at number 13. They don't normally pick that high. They have this pick because it's the Falcons pick. They'll probably be in Super Bowl contention again next year, even though the quarterback class is better. And Ty Simpson, my player comp for him, Brock Purdy, similar scheme, that McVay, Shanahan, run the ball, zone read first. I say keep an eye on the Rams because I just do not buy they're going to take a receiver in the first round when they found Puka in the 5th round. They find all these late round gems at that position. I think they may say this is our opportunity that, yes, we want to win next year, but one of the best ways we could win, what if Matt Stafford gets hurt next year? We have Ty Simpson on the bench to potentially help us out and develop as well.
Follow up to that, Austin, if you are the 13th pick with the Rams and you're thinking Ty Simpson, wouldn't it be better to just trade down into the mid-20s and get some more picks and give someone, hey, you want the 13th pick? I'm going to trade down. I'm going to take Ty Simpson at 22.
Yeah, and you know who the dancing partner could be? Could be the Chargers, could be the Eagles, any team that wants to leap Baltimore for Vega Iwane. So I think there's a natural fit there. By the way, that would still clock in under 24.5. So these books, they tend to get those numbers right, and I think that's all the scenarios they're running of where a team could potentially trade back for Ty as well.
Well, since we brought up Ty Simpson, that's a perfect segue. You'd think I've done this before. We're going to segue into quarterbacks. We know Mendoza's going. Ty Simpson is the heavy favorite to go to, whether it's late first round or early second round. The over-under is 1.5, minus 200 to the over, so people are agreeing it's going to be somewhere. It's weird that the over for Ty Simpson is minus 270 at 24.5, but the over-under at minus 1.5. So the books have him going between 25 and 32. Mm-hmm. So my question to you guys, and I'll go to you, Seth, first. Who is the third quarterback off the board? You have Nussmeier's favorite at plus 163, Carson Beck, who was a first-round pick 2 years ago, at plus 213, and Drew Aller, who missed half of last season at plus 300. All three are prototypical pro-style quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Who goes number 3, or is there a guy down the board, whether it's the kid from North Dakota State or the Baylor quarterback? Who goes number 3?
I've got Nussmeier, and I think part of that is that, like, if I was looking at him and Aller, if I was trying to decide between those two guys, they've all got their faults. I like the guy that his weakness might be that he's a little too aggressive versus Aller, whose weakness might be that he seizes up when he's getting pressured. And there's it's the old saying, you know, if a puppy doesn't bite as a dog, if he doesn't bite as a puppy, he's not going to bite as a dog. I think with quarterbacks, that's similar too. and people are going to maybe find something about just the way Nussmeier operates more enticing than the other two guys.
What about you, Austin?
I'm going off your board even. I'm going with Arkansas quarterback Taylon Green. I see him around plus 700, plus 750. Absolute star at the combine, jumping 43.5 inches, running in the 4.3s as a quarterback. To me, this is an addendum on the Anthony Richardson debacle. Anthony Richardson goes top 5 because of his traits. I would argue Taylon Green is a better prospect. He had 46 college starts. He had a ton of experience there. He's had better measurables at the combine. The problem is there is a development aspect to Taylon Green. I think a team looks at him and says, we'll try the quarterback thing. And if it doesn't work, maybe it's like a Terrell Pryor situation where we think about he's going to understand it doesn't work and we can convert him to wide receiver. That's not the way Taylon Green is thinking. But David, you'll know this well. I think the Miami Dolphins in round 3 is a red hot spot where I'm calling that as an exacto team fit because they brought in Malik Willis. Taylon Green can do a lot of those same running concepts to keep the offense similar, and he can develop. And Miami, by the way, has like 4 third-round picks, so they have all of the inventory to take Green kind of around that top 100 mark and bring him in. I will say I think Nussmeier is the biggest threat because I could see a team like Pittsburgh, like Indianapolis, bringing in a super high-level gamer and competitor. But to me, if I'm going to get Taylon Green at like plus 700 or so, I'm going to take the dart.
One of my favorite quotes about him was some anonymous scout. I love the anonymous scout quotes,
right.
But it was something along the lines of this guy said, yeah, people are saying it reminds them of Colin Kaepernick. Like that's a bad thing. Like Colin Kaepernick was a quarterback that if you'd taken him in the 3rd round and he had that career, like forget about all the other stuff or how you feel about anything. Yeah, that's a good 3rd round pick.
Right.
It absolutely is. And Colin Kaepernick was well on his way to being one of the better quarterbacks in football before all that other nonsense happened. You know what? I might go drive to a border state and take that pick, Austin. I like that. So, I mean, you got 4 third-round picks. You got 7 in the top 100. That's fine. I mean, you got Malik Willis. You're going to need a quarterback at some point with Tua being done. So, I don't mind Green at all. It's a pretty good one. You're listening to the Betting with Bearman podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. You guys ready for another Trend Center? You want a Trend Center for the day?
I'm hankering for one. Yeah.
You head to Trend Center now and use code BWB for 50% off your subscription. I have to follow up because I did give like a minus 370 earlier. Yeah, the Pistons are going to win tonight. You like fading the Colorado Rockies, but do you like playing an under at Coors Field? Let me throw you this trend from Trend Center. 6 times this year, the Rockies have scored 1 or 0 runs. 6 times. In all 6 previous occasions, the under hit the next night.
Interesting.
Tonight, they're playing at Coors versus the Padres, and the total is 12. Just throwing it out there. When the Rockies have cold bats, the bats continue to be cold. That's the trend. All 6. 6-0, it's not like, we're talking April here, but 6 times this year, they've scored 0 or 1. All 6 times, the unders hit the next night. Coors Field's got unders with 12 and 13 out there. So
you know what, dude, that's going to be weighted heavily by the fact that they just whooped up on the Astros, who have the worst pitching staff in the league right now.
It's not exactly the thing you like to wake up in the morning and say, I want to play an under at Coors Field, but there it is. So, Betting with Bearman podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Seth, Houston Texans, where are you going? What are they going to do? What do you like?
I think this has been my least popular take because this guy, this prospect has been way more polarizing than I think he should be, and it's Chase Basantis, the guard out of Texas A&M. He reminds me a lot in terms of just chatter, not in terms of the prospect, but when the Texans drafted Titus Howard originally, he was one of those guys that was projected as a 2nd-round pick, but I kept seeing and reading and hearing all of these things about how a lot of teams might hope that he falls into the 2nd round. Those guys end up going in the 1st round. And I think that at the end of the 1st round, Chase Basantis is not eye-popping in terms of a lot of his measurables, but he's a very solid and steady and polished player, and he's got a certain nastiness about him that the Texans have really been focused on. The guys that they've brought in, and Wyatt Teller and Braden Smith, are really aggressive run blockers. They re-upped the right guard, Ed Ingram, who's a really good run blocker, not as good of his pass protector. And I think Chase Basantis kind of operates the way that they want their new offensive line to operate. So I think for now, like Chase Basantis, because of the run that Austin was talking about on offensive linemen early in the draft, I think there's a really good chance he ends up with the Texans.
Austin, who's your favorite team going to take?
Well, I don't have a favorite team in particular, but the team I find most interesting is the Browns building around Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson this year because they have 2 first-rounders now. I have mocked it both times. I think it's the most obvious trade in the world. Dallas gives number 12 and 20. Cleveland gives number 6 and number 39. So Dallas moves up for this high-impact blue-chip defender, and Cleveland gets to move back and take my favorite left tackle prospect in the draft, Caden Proctor. He's a monster. He's a mountain at 6'7". And I feel like a lot of people were really rough on Proctor's film because he has these moments where his 2 halves become disconnected. But you also see a ton of stonewalls where his anchor is a non-starter for offensive line. Him going against Zion Young was my favorite tape that I watched of his. I think Cleveland ideally wants to move back. They don't want to take Proctor at 6. That's a little early for a guy that's still developing. But if they move back to 12 or to 13 or to 11, somewhere in that area, they take him. And then I think they're also looking at a wide receiver. Mekhi Lemon would be a very good prospect for them because Mekhi Lemon, Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam are very analytics oriented. They like guys who are productive in college. That's why I don't really buy KC Concepcion or Kenyon Sadiq or some of these guys that are a little more traitsy than they were productive in college. Mekhi Lemon over 3 yards per route run against both man and zone coverage. That reminds me of like Harold Fannin or Quinshon Judkins, these guys that are super productive in college. So I think Lemon is a target, whether it's 20, 24, however the board ends up shaking out if they do end up making a trade. But those are the guys they want to take. And then if they do have that extra first-round pick, I think best player available would make a lot of sense. And I mocked Toledo safety Emmanuel McNeil Warren. That dude is a cheetah. He is a panther hunting guys from a big nickel spot. So I think the Browns draft is going to be a load of fun. And I think they'll move back from 6 even at a discount if they have to.
Caden
Now
Proctor is he's just a freak of nature.
Yes.
You know what? When I watch him, I kind of, because I was a defensive lineman, and when people bring up, okay, they're not so sure about his consistency, or maybe he's got a different personality or whatever. I'm like, that would not be an issue at all if he was a defensive tackle. That we invite that, but offensive lineman, it's a little bit different. They want everything a little bit more stable. But this is what happens when you're a freak of nature. Not everything can be quite perfect. It's God giveth, God taketh away, and there's so few people in the world that are that big that can move the way he does.
Yes.
And now the moment that the millions of listeners of the Betting with Bearman podcast have been waiting for is my take on the Miami Dolphins. And I'm not going to surprise you. It's the same take that I've had for almost every single year. Chris Greer refused to listen to me, but I think the new regime will give me an offensive lineman. That's all I want. An offensive lineman. That's all I want. Give me Fano. Give me the kid from Miami. Now, I will tell you, if Bain is still there at 11, it's going to be hard for any Dolphins fan to not want them to take Bain.
Yep.
Okay. I can settle with the edge guy with Bain. You lost Phillips, you lost Chubb, fine. Give me Bain. Give me an offensive lineman, please. Just do it for once. Like trenches, and more trenches. It's the winning formula. Teams that win Super Bowls don't win it with rotating turnstiles at tackle. Just go get me a lineman. Like Chris Greer is gone. That's Mike McDaniel's gone. I don't need a quarterback right now. And by God, do not draft a wide receiver with the 11th overall pick. If you're going to do that, then don't trade Waddle. Like, there's no reason to do that. You want a receiver, you got 4 third-round picks, go find a receiver. Seth, what should the Dolphins do? And then I want Austin, what should the Dolphins do?
Oh, what should the Dolphins do? I know,
I just threw that out there.
No. I was thinking the exact same thing. I was thinking offensive line. Just because the original sin was when you traded away Laramie Tunsil, and I can't even remember who we gave back to you guys. That was
you gave us 6,000 draft picks, which we used for Tyreek Hill. Yeah. We used for Waddle. We used for Tua. We built the entire 2023 Dolphins.
Yeah, you got some really good prospects out of it. I shouldn't call it original sin. It made sense. I thought it was a good trade by both teams. It ended up the Texans didn't end up doing anything incredible with Laramie either. Right. But yeah, I think that's I forgot, how long was your GM there? Is it 20 years?
He was the GM for 15, but he had been scouting with the team for 25.
Yeah. No, I was nodding my head with you the entire time. Yeah. Offensive line.
Austin?
I think my favorite, if I were in the Dolphins controls, I would do one of two things. I've got all these 3rd-round picks in a draft that's not so deep. I might think about moving up to number 3 and grabbing Arvell Reese. This was a regime that was there when Micah Parsons went to Green Bay. This same sort of hybrid, athletic freak, opposite Chop Robinson. Get your pass rush in order, set the tone. I think you could do that, but if you stick and pick at 11, my favorite prospect for them is Mansour Delane. Jeff Hafley's defense is very heavy on zone coverage. Delane is the smartest, best zone corner in the draft, but he's multiple, no problem, press man-to-man. I think Delane's a guy that'll be a top 8 corner in the NFL. He's clearly the best corner in this class, so I wouldn't hate that for Miami as well. But because of what I talked about, it's hard to not say an offensive line wouldn't be a good pick because you can get a corner. You can get an edge rusher later. If you get one of these guys like an Iwane or one of the tackles, then you have that set in stone and can move from there.
Yeah, I'd be surprised they moved up just because of everything that John Eric Sullivan has said. I'd be surprised. Right. He wants more picks. He loves picks. If they trade up, they trade up. So last segment of the show, you guys have the entire board, whatever you want it to be, your long shot play for the draft. We'll start with you, Austin. What's your biggest long shot? And then Seth, I'm going to ask you the same question.
I was looking out the board, and I'm a little disappointed with my long shot offense, but I'm going to go Jacob Rodriguez to be a first-round pick. I don't think it's like favored or super likely, but buying equity with fans is something the GMs might not admit that they consider, but no one's going to be mad if you take Jacob Rodriguez. Top 5 season, was in the Heisman Trophy mix at Texas Tech, and we looked at his profile and we're like, yeah, well, it won't translate to the next level. And then he goes to the Senior Bowl and dominates. And then you're like, well, yeah, he's not a great athlete. And then he goes to the combine, top 940 time, 10-yard split, shuttle, 3-cone. He had a great combine with some of these very corollary numbers to success at linebacker. The one flaw left in his profile is that he turns 24 later this year. So he's a little bit older. But there are a lot of teams late in the first round, the Buccaneers, Cowboys, Bills, Patriots, and Bears. All of them could use a linebacker. Rodriguez all of a sudden is one of the most complete prospects in the draft. I think he's an early day 2 guy, but it wouldn't surprise me at plus 300 or so if he sneaks into round 1. A team they win the hearts of their fans and take Jacob Rodriguez late in the first.
Seth, who's going to blow up the board and shock you?
My guy, and this guy isn't as much of a surprise as he used to be, but Keelan Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia Tech, you go back to January, and he was going in the 4th, 5th round or so, and then he had a good performance at the Senior Bowl where he played center. They played him at center some, and I think that's where he started to become a lot more appealing, and now he's looked at as more of a second rounder. I was talking to John Harris here locally, who's from footballtakeover.com, and he brought him up as a potential pick in the late first round because of his versatility. And so it's not as much, it wouldn't be as much of a shock as it would have been a few months ago, but still a guy that we really weren't talking about as a first rounder until recently.
Yeah. Rutledge is a great story. I mean, almost lost his foot in a car accident and then turns that into an all ACC season. My personal introduction to him was when he was pouring blood and didn't care at all against Clemson earlier this year on tape. Rutledge is a tough-nosed football player, and I think it's a good time to be Seth because the Texans are in a great spot where Rutledge and Chase Bisontis, and I love Emmanuel Pregnon the most of the 3 of them. It is a really good guard class right where they pick early in the second round. So yeah, it's a good time to be a Texans fan.
Seth, where can we find you? This has been fun. Where can people find you on socials? And listen, where can they find you?
On Twitter at Seth C. Payne, and then my YouTube channel, the Seth Payne Show, and then also the Bleave in Texans podcast, which we share a common employer there in FanDuel.
Awesome. We do. Bleave podcast. It's been fun. Good time on there. Hopefully I can come on your show one day and talk betting. Maybe we'll do that. Do a home and home.
No,
Austin.
yeah, I need help. Yeah.
Hey, last year, every single week last year, I did a segment on the Titans and Bleave in Titans podcast. Happy to do it.
You know what I need? I need somebody to keep my emotions in check. That's what I'm doing just fine until I start letting. I want to draft Jeremiah Love #1 overall. Yeah.
That would shake up the board a little bit. That could have been your long shot. Austin, where can people find your work?
I'm on X at Swaim3, which is probably the best spot because I'll do right now. I'm covering the Jaguars for Fansided. I do a lot of stuff with PrizePicks Playbook and FanDuel Sports, or not FanDuel Sports, but PrizePicks Playbook, Pro Football Network. Easy for me to say. I have a lot of different little projects going on: UFC, NFL Draft. I'm going to get into probably some baseball stuff as well once we get past the draft. So I appreciate you guys all tuning in and checking out my content.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on here. Seth Payne, Austin Swaim. You can find me at David Bearman. Make sure you go to bearmanbets.com to download the 3-time-a-week betting newsletter where we'll have tons of information all summer long on baseball, basketball, college baseball as well. And once we hit August, it's all things NFL and college football. Something I never thought I would say a year ago is that Fernando Mendoza is going to go #1 to the Raiders. I don't think I'd ever say that. Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner and national champion of What am I talking about? That's exactly what happened. The draft is going to start. I appreciate you guys joining me. This has been the Betting with Bearman podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook.